My name is Natalie Iniguez. I'm making this get ready with me style video essay for Miss Professor brand. I'm also going to be using some Latina owned makeup brands, which I will be, showing in the video. So let's get started. All right, so I did already apply concealer on my eyelids. I'm gonna start doing my eyebrows now. The reason why I chose How to Tame a Wild Tongue is because I think I relate to it the most, since for one, I am a first generation Latino, and because of that, I felt like when I did read that passage compared to the other ones, I felt more drawn to it for obvious reasons. The main topic of this essay is about language and how we use it to code switch, and how sometimes we Latinos could be sometimes afraid to use our own language around other people. So after the two stories that Anzaldua presents us with, she not only tells us that Americans have been the ones that have been telling her to fix her language and to speak English more properly, she also then explains that Mexican-born Spanish speakers tell her that the way she's speaking Spanish isn't the correct way to speak Spanish. That essentially us Mexican Americans always chop up the language and we give a bad rep to it, essentially, which isn't necessarily true. I wouldn't think that that's the case. Just because we don't speak the academically correct way doesn't mean that puts less value into our own languages. After that part of the essay, she does go on to list the different languages that she speaks or knows of, which would be Tex-Mex, Pachuco, Chicano Spanish, Standard English, and then all the other languages that she herself speaks. So after talking about some of the languages that she speaks herself, she then explains the history of some of them. And then she explains how the Pocho language came from the Zoot Suiter era of history. So not only does she explain the history of the Zoot Suiter language, she also then explains how some of the letters and words we say have shifting pronunciations, I guess, concerning the Chicano Spanish, which is like, for reference, how we shift the double L's to Y's and Z's to S's. And now we kind of just stuck with it ever since then. And even then, it does, all of the Chicano and Spanglish dialect always changes from different regions, like how the way we speak Spanish here in California is different from the way they speak it over there in Texas. And that's just kind of how things worked out. I did want to also show the Beauty Creations eyeshadow that I will be using on my eyes, which is in fact a Latina owned brand. And then going back to the topic, she and other Mexicans or Latinos alike are also scared to speak Spanish around other native Spanish speakers, which I've had many instances where I try my hardest to speak Spanish with family members of mine, or even just any place in the grocery store, and I always end up messing up a word or two, or you could just tell from my accent that I can't really speak proper Spanish like that. And sometimes it makes you feel a little ashamed, because there has been times where I would tell people that I can't speak Spanish because I was afraid of getting judged. Which honestly is something that we as Hispanics need to learn, that we shouldn't judge each other off of just trying to communicate ourselves in our language. Even though it might not be correct, at least we're trying. But yeah, she does express that she does feel ashamed, or even a little prejudgment from even trying to speak Spanish. Okay, so we are halfway done through the get ready with me. I'm gonna put my hair back and put on my foundation. One of the other things I did want to bring up was a story. One time I was at CVS with my mom. There is a little girl with her dad, and they were also speaking about the topic of language, and if you live in America, you should only be speaking English. And I'm not sure if that topic came up because they heard me and my mom talking to each other in Spanish. But honestly, I'm not one to stay quiet ever, but I do remember when that did happen, I did speak up and I told well, the both of them, oh, that's not right. Just because there's people that don't speak the language here, it doesn't mean anything. There's lots of people from different ethnicities and different countries that come in here all the time and they live here without having to speak English, so what's the problem? And I did also say, like, plus if you did want to go really deep into the conversation, white people don't even belong here to begin with. This is not your country technically. If you did your history homework ever, but I didn't say it in a disrespectful way, but I did say it only because I felt like I needed to, because I mean, Anzaldua is right. We shouldn't have to like give other people a code switch just because we want to fit in or whatever. We already fit in. We're here. What else do we need to do to fit in? We're already in the country. And plus most of the country thrives off of culture itself anyways, whether it's from Hispanics, Asian or Black people, whether it's comes from music, food. They lynch off of all of our cultures, and they profit off of it sometimes as well. So I don't think it's right for that person to have said that. But yeah, that I remember after I gave that man a piece of my mind, he did say, we weren't even talking to you and whatever, and I was like, okay. But yeah, so there was that experience that I did have recently. Me telling you that brief story was just an example of like how I interpreted the essay that Anzaldua wrote. I did relate to it a lot. There was one quote that did stick out to me, which I will read it off right now. Alright, so before I do read off the quote, I wanted to show off my blush product that I am going to be using today, which is a Rare Beauty blush, which is also a Latino-owned brand. But the quote does read, "Until I am free to write bilingually and to switch codes without having to always translate, while I still have to speak English or Spanish when I would rather speak Spanglish. And as long as I have to accommodate to the English speakers rather than having them accommodate me, my language will be illegitimate. I will no longer be made to feel ashamed of existing. I will have my voice. Indian, Spanish, white. I will have my serpent's tongue, my woman's voice, my sexual voice, my poet's voice, and I will overcome the tradition of silence." The reason why I read off that quote is because I think it goes perfectly with what the whole essay is about. It goes with her whole opinion of how we as Mexican Americans shouldn't accommodate to those English speakers that judge us, or even the native Spanish speakers that judge us and make us feel less than. We shouldn't have to accommodate to anybody but have an explanation for our own selves. Well, with that said, I am almost done with my makeup. I just need to apply my lip liner and my lipstick. She also does explain some of the history of our culture by bringing up music influences, actors, specific like famous movies. I do remember she had listed like Pedro Infante. I also do want to show you one of the vinyls I have back there, but I will show you after I finish my makeup. Alright, so this is the finished makeup look. I will list everything down in the description, but last but not least, I did want to show off my vinyl. Is Miss Uchis. Her vinyl Sin Miedo is a really good album. I only brought it up or wanted to show you because she is my favorite artist, but I did want to also talk about the influence of music on the Hispanic culture, and obviously she has influenced me to do my makeup kind of like her for today. I just didn't do, you know, lashes or the eyeliner. But with that said, thank you so much for watching my video essay, and I hope to see you on my next assignment. Thank you.